There's no sort of nice way to say this. The truth of the matter is, grief sucks. That's just the way it is. It's just lousy. I have been through challenging situations with all kinds of people across the decades. People who have had the tragic loss of a spouse or a child or a best friend or whatever in an accident or protracted bout with cancer or who knows what. And I've walked with them along the way, and it's been tough. And you think you have really empathized until it smacks you in the face like a Mack truck. Wow. And that's just kind of how I feel. Betty transitioned to glory just a little over a week ago. A week ago, Friday, 2 days ago. And boom, my world was turned upside down. I realized just maybe today, yesterday, I've never lived alone in my life. 80 years. And I still say we, us. I mean, that's going to take a long time not to go there, because that's been my life. Betty and I started dating exactly this time of year, maybe even this week. 65 years ago, we went to the Oregon State Fair together, and I hoped that we would go through the tunnel of love, which we did. But I don't think we even held hands. Didn't make any difference. I was besmitten by this absolutely gorgeous lady whose smile would shatter glass. And I'd be committed to her for the rest of her life. And I thought that would go long beyond mine. You know how that goes. That's just traditionally the way we think. But it didn't work that way. And over the last 4.5 years, after her bout with COVID, which was stacked on top of a pre-existing lung condition caused by radiation for breast cancer 10 years ago, it just did a number on her. For 4.5 years now, I have sort of been waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I knew at some time the shoe would drop. I didn't have any sort of, I wasn't denying that in any sense to myself. I knew the reality. I was never going to communicate that to B, no way. What I was going to always do and always did do with B is ask her, so what do you want? What are you looking for? I want to get outside. I want to get my hands in the dirt again. When she first got out of the hospital for the first 6-8 months, she was able to do some stuff. But then slowly but surely, she started a very, very slow progress downward, very slow. But over the last year or so, it's really picked up speed. And I could see it coming and knew it would be sooner than later. Still, I would do everything I could to help Betty accomplish the goals that she had. It was exceedingly difficult for her to breathe. My goodness, I slept 8 hours last night. I haven't slept 8 hours for 5 years. Normally for me, it's been 4.5, whatever. Didn't make any difference. It's helping B. And if I hadn't been in the health that I'm in, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have had her here. I mean, I was bending over to change that oxygen tank 6-8 times a day, running here, running there. I mean, just bang on it all night, every 2.5 hours. She would need this, she would want that, get her up, do this, do that. And had I not been in good health, I just couldn't have made it. So I am thankful to God that 13 years ago, he allowed me and encouraged me to get healthy. I had no idea it would be for this, for such a time as this, but it was. I hope you're healthy. You never know who you need to be healthy for. But during this 4.5 years, I have combed the web looking for people who discuss what could only be called pre-grief. And that is to say, what do you do in that in-between time? You have no idea when that shoe's going to drop, none. You know it's going to drop, it's going to happen, but you don't know when. And you hear people say, oh, you need to set your goals, plan your work your plan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, you go for it, bud. You're not in my shoes and you don't really understand this situation. And for me, it doesn't work quite like that. It's so interesting now, after the fact, as I've been looking at things that have to do with grief and losing a spouse and one thing and another. I ran across a lady who has a YouTube video was made with her who was at one point a professor at University of California, San Diego. Really bright gal in her 90s, I think, when she made the video. But she talked about what she called pre-grief. And that is to say exactly this. She said, the truth is, for many of us, there is this other season where we're just starting that process, not really understanding what it means, where it goes, but we're moving in the process. And that is so true. When I was in graduate school, shortly after the earth cooled in the 60s, there was a Swiss psychiatrist named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross who wrote a book called, I can't remember the name of the book, but she wrote about death and dying. And that was the one that that brought all of the stuff out about the 5 stages of grief, DABDA, where there is denial, and then there is anger, and then there is bargaining, and then there is depression, and then there is acceptance. And sort of these are the stages you go through. Well, I've got to say, that may be true for some people, and I don't think anybody goes through them sequentially like that anyway. They may go from 1 to 3 to 2 to 5 to 1 to who knows what. But those stages don't describe my experience. I never denied the fact that what was happening was happening. Betty, when she got out of the hospital, was a completely different person. She had never been that person before, and she was changed irrevocably, and I knew that. And I wasn't in denial about the fact that this was headed in a direction. And I didn't go through that phase of, anger with God. I don't have any anger with God. This wasn't God's fault that it happened. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. And if you understand God and you understand his word, he doesn't care about Betty any more, any less. He loves her. He always has, he always will. The same with me. I mean, he loved Job, right? Look at the stuff that Job went through. And so I wasn't angry. If I was angry at anything, it would be with cancer. Got to find a cure for cancer, not radiation. I mean, radiation, there are unintended consequences when you're trying to do something. The radiation stopped her cancer in its tracks. It just caused another problem. It's just the way it was. So I wasn't angry. And I never went through a stage of bargaining. God, if you just heal Betty, then. I mean, when she was going through the process in the hospital, I remember asking God if there was any way that we could change places, Betty and I. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. No, those stages don't fit my life. Now, depression, acceptance, yeah. Those are things that I will deal with for sure. And that is reality. So I walk along and cry a lot. Knowledge is power. And I know that when you experience an emotion, it actually passes through your body physiologically quickly, 90 seconds. Think about that. When you start to cry and it hits you hard, you get through that thing in 90 seconds. Harvard brain scientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, and I'm quoting her, says, when a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens in the body. After that, any emotional response is just the person choosing to stay in that emotional loop. Isn't that amazing? And she also goes on to say that if you circumvent that and you stop it at 15 seconds or 30 seconds, it's still there. You're going to process it one way or another. And so just feel the emotion, let it go. It's going to go for 90 seconds, and then you can begin to catch your breath and ponder. And for me, I'll then try my best to focus on gratitude. Well, I'm in the process of a big change. That's why I ever created this channel in the first place. I have talked about change and transition and taught about it and worked through it for years and years and years. But this one, not so much. So it's a new change to work with, and I need you in the process. You know, truly we are better together. We really do help each other in this process. That's why I created this YouTube channel. Why I want you to like this video and to subscribe to the channel and to share it with others and to make comments, comment. Let's grow in this stuff together. That's the only way any of us can be stronger. You know, I got a word from somebody, if you read my Facebook page, that talked about the difference of time and heaven, that Betty would just be kind of getting settled in and bang, I'd be right there beside her, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 years or 25 years. It's as though we'd never been apart. And I love that. I love that. I love those words. I love to hear those things. I know the kinds of things that are from the Lord to me, and I can just grab onto those. And so do you. And we need to share those things with one another. Excuse me. It's windy out here. I am looking forward to this process. And I'm hoping that you will be an active part of it. Let's learn how to make positive change together. Shall we? Blessings.